Um, okay, so my video cut out in the middle because apparently the program I'm using only lets you do 10 minutes at a time. Sorry, I'm not very professional at video editing, and you know what? I can invest more time in doing it more professionally and edit out and cut out. But I know if I try to do something professionally and perfect, I just won't find the time. So I'm just going to do it imperfectly. I'm going to connect this part to the previous part. I'm just going to carry on where it cut off. So please forgive me. So anyway, I was in the middle of talking about Chaim Brisker. So as I said, he's innovative. He is certainly the founder of a new way of analysis. It's very, very interesting, by the way, as a philosopher. So I studied philosophy at university, and I studied what's called analytic philosophy. Analytic philosophy is a certain method of doing philosophy. It came about at the beginning of the 20th century. That's roughly the same time that Chaim Brisker is coming up with his method. And his method is also seen as an analytic method of analyzing Talmud. And I don't know if anyone has written about this. I think this should be looked into more deeper. The links. Is there something in the air? Is there cross influence between the very secular kind of philosophical analytical movement and what Reb Chaim Brisker is doing in Gemara? I don't know. It seems unlikely that these two worlds would meet and be influenced by each other. But I think this is more than just coincidence that at the same time, kind of there's two new ways of thought, one in secular philosophy and one in Talmud. But anyway, so Reb Chaim Brisker's method is very much kind of almost like an analytic philosophy for Gemara. It's analysis of terms. You're analyzing what you mean by words, what you mean by concepts. You're looking into metaphysics and language, and it's very, very philosophical. And and I like philosophy. I like analytic philosophy. So I quite like what he did. Having said that, I think he sometimes goes too far. He sometimes says things that aren't so plausible. But, that's just part of philosophy. You sometimes take things too far. And also, I must say, there are methodological issues. I don't want to go into too much detail, but there are methodological issues for why analysis of Talmud falls short. And I think the biggest is that there is an assumption there that isn't true. So the assumption behind any kind of Talmudic analysis, at least traditional analysis, is that the Talmud is basically free of error and free of contradiction, right? So most of traditional Talmudic analysis is trying to resolve contradiction. And of course, to believe that, you have to believe that the Talmud has some kind of divine knowledge and, it's inerrant in some way. Of course, there's no reason to believe that. The Talmud is a document written by lots of people over centuries. Of course it's going to have contradictions, of course it's going to have errors, right? And once you take that into account, I'm not so sure, the analysis is a bit forced. You're trying to square the circle. You're trying to bring together lots of things and resolve contradictions, and maybe the contradictions are meant to be there. So that's why I think Talmudic analysis falls short, but that's in no fault to Reb Chaim Brisker, who is working within the traditional framework. I think for that, I would put Reb Chaim Brisker in the A tier as a great kind of, within his framework is a great rational thinker. All right, next up we have the Chasam Sofer, Reb Moshe Sofer. He was actually the son-in-law of Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Now, quite a polarizing figure, and he had a lot of influence on me and my community because I grew up in Satmar, which sees itself as almost like following in the ways of Chasam Sofer. Even though Chasam Sofer wasn't Hasidish, but the Chasam Sofer, Hungarian rabbi, Satmar is also Hungary, Romania. Chasam Sofer is a zealot. Well, he's seen that way. I think it's more his disciples after him that took it to the next level. But he is seen as the initiator of the fight against the Haskalah, the Jewish Enlightenment. So he is seen as this uncompromising person who thinks, we can't, rejection of modernity, rejection of any innovation in Judaism. And Satmar, as zealots, as very insular, as very anti-modernity and anti-enlightenment, like him. And that's also the reason why I wouldn't like him. As a thinker, is he a great thinker? I don't know. He's definitely, I guess he's a decent halachist. Chivas Chasam Sofer, he's quite influential. I wouldn't, I'm not very familiar with his halachic work, but I don't get the impression that he's some kind of great, brilliant thinker, halachically speaking. he's a decent thinker, but I don't think he's, anywhere on the level of his father, or Rabbi Akiva Eiger, for example. And then he has his his work kind of interpreting the Torah. So his Chasam Sofer Torah, which is very drush based, very interpretive, which also I don't like. Not very kind of rationalistic, more kind of saying nice things, Musa based, trying to find kind of nice lessons. It doesn't really connect with me on a personal level. Again, this is very subjective. Some people really like him. Some people think he has really beautiful things to say. And actually, I did have a period when I was younger when I would read him on a regular basis, and I quite liked him. He's a nice writer, and he has these nice Wertlich, nice Divrei Torah, nothing too deep or too innovative, but nice. So I think, where should we put him? I would put him, I think, in B tier, probably. Decent halachist, nice writer, I think he belongs there. Alright, next up we have the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish was very influential on me when I was younger. I idolized him. I read a lot of his biography. I should say hagiography. It was the kind of literature that it's not a full-on biography of a person. It's more kind of painting a very kind of saintly picture of a person. And to be fair, I haven't gone back later and read kind of more scholarly works on him to see him as a full human being. I have read... it's a fictional book. It's called Tzemach Atlas, which is a book by Chaim, a secular Yiddish writer who was a disciple of the Chazon Ish, and he wrote a 2-volume novel called Tzemach Atlas, or The Yeshiva. It's translated in English as The Yeshiva, which is very, very interesting, and he has a lot of biographical kind of sketches of the Chazon Ish, which do portray him as a more complex picture. He is people who talk about him say he was a Balmidas, so a decent human being who cared for others. That in itself, can be quite rare when you're talking about rabbis and geniuses. Not always. Some rabbis are nice, but not all. And definitely a genius. So Chazon Ish, without a doubt, people, even though he's a contemporary 20th century rabbi, people compare him to one of the Rishonim. They're saying that he can't even argue with Rishonim because he is such a genius. Was he very innovative in his thinking? I don't know, but he definitely defined the generation. He is the rabbi of the 20th century. Definitely his breadth of knowledge of traditional Jewish literature is incredibly impressive, and he's definitely a very, very brilliant thinker. And also, his hashkafic thinking, his theology is developed. Many rabbis don't engage in thinking about Jewish thought and philosophy. In traditional Judaism, there isn't an emphasis on philosophy and theology. Chazon Ish does. He grapples with it. And he has a book called Emine Betochen, which I read in my teens, quite influential on me. And he's a very, very clear writer. He has a good command of Hebrew. Very nice, pleasant read. And all-round legend, I'd say. So, yeah, I think he belongs at least in the A tier. At least in the A tier. I'm even tempted to put him in the S tier. But should we put him in the S tier? I don't know. He is definitely in the upper end of the A tier. Should we put him in the S tier? Let's put him in the S tier. We'll put him in the S tier. Alright, next up we have the Chofetz Chaim, and I think the video might stop in the middle of me describing this person, but we'll come back to it in the next section if it does cut me off. So, Chofetz Chaim, early 20th century, late 19th century, very old person. So towards the end of the life, he becomes the Gudel Hador. Maybe, you know what? Maybe he is the first Gudel Hador. Nowadays, we have the phenomenon of Gedolim in Haredi society. I'm going to finish the video, this one here, and I'm going to come back to the Chofetz Chaim in the next.